The mask is beginning to fall away, and what's underneath tells a story even the most experienced royal watchers never anticipated. For years, the narrative around the Duke and Duchess of Sussex centered on escape, a dramatic departure from the suffocating goldfish bowl of royal life in pursuit of a quieter, more private existence in California. But as we step into 2026, that original call for privacy has evolved into something entirely different. It's no longer about avoiding the spotlight. It's about commanding it, shaping it, and above all, profiting from it. A growing discomfort is emerging, even among former supporters, that the very aspects of monarchy they once criticized are now being repackaged and sold back to the public. This time as luxury candles, curated jams, and lifestyle branding. Yet this goes beyond simple marketing. It's a story of a broken understanding, puzzling inconsistencies, and what appears to be a calculated effort to position the next generation of royals as the ultimate commercial asset. What started as quiet whispers has turned into a deafening chorus, with many now asking, was this the plan all along? To truly understand how things reached this point, we have to return to where it all began. The Sandringham Summit. This wasn't merely a family discussion. It was a high-stakes negotiation that laid down the rules of Mexet. The late Queen Elizabeth II, who spent 7 decades protecting the integrity of the crown, made her position unmistakably clear. There could be no halfway arrangement. The monarchy's prestige could not be used for personal financial gain. Prince Harry agreed to those terms, making a solemn commitment to both his grandmother and the nation. But fast forward to today, and the situation looks very different. The titles of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet are no longer associated with public service or official duties. They're appearing as branding elements tied to upscale lifestyle products. Critics argue this directly violates the original agreement, a betrayal made even more striking now that the Queen is no longer here to enforce those boundaries. To some, it feels as though once that final authority disappeared, the rules simply stopped mattering. But that's only part of the story. The backlash against this royal-adjacent branding reached new heights following a recent interview with James Kern Lima. Intended as a soft, empowering conversation about female success, it quickly took an unexpected turn due to a small but striking detail in the background. In a gift basket sent by Meghan, sharp-eyed viewers noticed what looked like her HRH title printed on a product label. In the world of high-level public relations, oversights like this are almost unheard of. Every detail in a high-profile interview is carefully controlled. Every product placement meticulously reviewed. That label didn't slip through by accident. It sent a message. A subtle introduction to a new phase where royal associations are leveraged to sell everything from strawberry preserves to home decor. Some critics see it as a deliberate test, gauging how far boundaries could be pushed before any response from the palace. Supporters may dismiss it as a friendly gesture, but the timing, aligning closely with the launch of her latest business venture, suggests something far more strategic. It paints a picture of a plan that places commercial gain above the very agreements that made their departure possible. At the same time, their personal narrative is becoming increasingly inconsistent. One of the most unusual and widely debated elements of the recent Sussex media appearances involves a short audio clip featuring what is said to be 3-year-old Lilibet. In the clip, a child's voice softly says the word beautiful while looking at a cooking setup. On the surface, it feels like a charming, relatable moment, but closer scrutiny raises questions. Commentators and speech analysts have noted that the voice sounds unusually developed for a toddler, with a tone and delivery strikingly similar to Meghan's own distinctive way of speaking. Even the choice of word, beautiful, stands out as it's frequently used by Meghan in a wide range of contexts, from art to food presentation. This has sparked a wave of speculation online. Viewers are replaying the clip, analyzing it in detail, and asking whether it captures a genuine moment or if it's been carefully edited to project a particular image. And the doubts don't stop there. When examining the visual record, the mystery only deepens. Despite their emphasis on authenticity, the public images of Archie and Lilibet remain some of the most inconsistent among high-profile families. Observers have pointed out that in different appearances, the children's hair color appears to shift dramatically, from vivid red to a much lighter blonde. Their proportions in distant shots also seem to vary in ways that don't quite match their reported ages, creating what some describe as a chameleon-like effect that fuels further skepticism. Even Samantha Markle has publicly questioned the credibility of these images, noting the absence of any consistent reference point that would allow the public to clearly. Instead, what we're shown are partial glimpses. A turned head, a blurred profile, or black and white images that obscure defining details like recognizable features or genetic traits that typically link children to their parents. This strategy of concealment is framed as a way to safeguard privacy. But critics see something else at play. They argue it enables the Sussexes to maintain such tight control over the narrative, the public never truly gets a clear view behind the carefully constructed image. That lack of consistency has given rise to one of the most controversial ideas circulating in royal commentary, the so-called standing theory. While it may sound like something pulled from a suspense novel, it's rooted in the sheer number of visual discrepancies people have noticed. Why would a child's hair appear to change color so often? Why are photos consistently taken from angles that obscure the face? When you compare this to how the Prince and Princess of Wales present their children, with clear, high-resolution images that naturally document their growth, the Sussex approach comes across as deliberately elusive. That sense of avoidance has created a void, has poured speculation. Some are now questioning whether what's being presented is a curated version of parenthood rather than an authentic one. When these visual inconsistencies are paired with the unusually advanced speech heard in audio clips, the image of a flawlessly polished royal family begins to feel less like reality and more like a carefully produced advertisement. And once the audience begins to suspect they're being sold a narrative, the dynamic shifts. The timing of these personal reveals is also drawing attention. Observers have noted a pattern. Whenever the Sussex brand faces challenges, whether it's a struggling podcast or a wave of negative press, a new intimate glimpse of the children suddenly appears. Critics describe this as merching at its most strategic, suggesting the children are being positioned as distractions from professional setback. For instance, when reports emerged that Meghan's podcast had slipped out of the top 100, a major announcement quickly followed in People magazine, highlighting the use of the children's royal titles in business branding. It's a classic public relations pivot. When the business falters, lean into celebrity appeal. For Harry, this contradiction is particularly striking. He has spoken openly about the pressures of growing up under constant public scrutiny and has warned about the dangers of social media exposure for children. Yet now, he appears to be allowing his own children to become part of a commercial narrative. The contrast is difficult to ignore and hints at a possible imbalance, where Meghan's business goals may be taking precedence over Harry's previously stated beliefs. But the scrutiny doesn't stop with the children. It extends to the persona Meghan is presenting to the world. In recent interviews, she has leaned heavily into the image of the thoughtful, caring friend, the kind of person who sends curated gift baskets and homemade treats to comfort others during difficult times. It's a carefully crafted narrative designed to position her as warm, attentive, and nurturing. However, that image is being challenged by resurfaced clips from the 2018 Australia tour. These viral moments paint a very different picture. One particular clip, filmed during a hospital visit, has gained traction online for what viewers describe as a cold, cutting glance directed at a woman assisting Harry. The contrast between that moment and the soft, nurturing persona of 2026 is stark. These older clips have become a kind of digital echo, resurfacing just as a new image is being promoted. They serve as a reminder that in the internet age, past behavior doesn't simply disappear when it no longer fits the narrative. This pattern of scrutiny also extends to Meghan's interactions within Hollywood's elite circles, most notably the ongoing speculation surrounding her relationship with Gwyneth Paltrow, a long-established figure in the lifestyle space. For months, there have been rumors suggesting that Gwyneth was unimpressed by Meghan's entry into that same arena, with some interpreting her social media post as subtle jabs. In a recent interview, Meghan attempted to downplay the situation, describing it as a misunderstanding and claiming she hadn't even been aware of the headlines. But critics find that explanation difficult to accept. For someone so attuned to media perception and branding, missing a globally trending story seems unlikely. The way she recounted a friendly exchange with Gwyneth felt, to some, less like a genuine reconciliation and more like a calculated effort to signal continued relevance within elite circles. As many observers have pointed out, though, there's a difference between a polite interaction and true inclusion. The social hierarchy in Hollywood remains intact, and it appears that the inner circle is still keeping its distance. What's perhaps even more revealing is the emphasis on rivalry. Meghan often frames media narratives about her conflicts with other women as exaggerated or fabricated for the sake of headlines. While it's true that the media often thrives on tension, critics argue that this framing also functions as a shield. So by labeling criticism as misogyny or manufactured drama, she sidesteps deeper questions about inconsistencies in her own story. But as the commercial use of her children becomes increasingly apparent, that protective narrative is beginning to weaken. More people are starting to question whether the rivalries are always invented, or if at times they reflect something more real. Sometimes it's simply a natural reaction to someone seen as using their status to sidestep rules that apply to everyone else. And in the high-pressure world of Hollywood, authenticity isn't optional. It's the only real currency. That leads directly to the financial reality behind the Sussex brand. The private life they set out to build comes with an enormous price tag. A $16 million home, constant security, top-tier PR teams. It all adds up to an exceptionally high burn rate. With the Spotify deal no longer in play and Netflix projects facing delays, the need for a new income stream has become urgent. This is where ventures like American Riviera Orchard and the shift toward lifestyle products come into focus. But a brand rooted in royal identity only holds value if that royal connection remains intact. That's why the titles are being held on to so tightly. Without a prince and a duchess, they risk blending into the sea of celebrity couples competing for attention. The challenge, however, is that the more those titles are leveraged for commercial purposes, the more they risk distancing themselves from the very institution that gives those titles meaning. It becomes a cycle of diminishing returns, one that edges closer to a dead end. And the issue doesn't stop at royal optics. It's beginning to touch on constitutional sensitivities as well. In the United States, there's a long-standing cultural resistance to inherited status, especially when it appears to influence public or political conversations. Critics argue that Harry and Meghan are stepping into risky territory by using their titles in contexts that brush up against political discourse despite congressional caution. In doing so, they may be projecting a level of authority that doesn't actually exist within the American system. While a kind of a royal aesthetic might work in branding and lifestyle marketing, it becomes far more complicated when it intersects with public affairs. Increasingly, people are asking why a British prince should carry weight in discussions about domestic issues. That skepticism is growing, and with it, a potential backlash from the very audience they're trying to engage. The timing of their current moves is also raising questions. With King Charles dealing with serious health concerns and Prince and Princess of Wales focused on their own responsibilities, There's a perception of a temporary power gap within the monarchy. Some critics believe the Sussexes are taking advantage of this moment, pushing forward while the institution is less able to respond. Some commentators have even described it as a sense of getting away with something, acting boldly while oversight is limited. But this approach may prove short-sighted. It risks severing the last remaining ties with senior royals and effectively closing the door on any future reconciliation. In chasing short-term gains, they may be sacrificing long-term legacy, and that trade-off is playing out in full public view. So what happens when the narrative loses its pull? When the audience grows tired of the victim storyline or the appeal of luxury lifestyle products fades? The Sussex strategy has become heavily dependent on royal branding, yet that very foundation is becoming more contentious by the day. Without palace support and facing increasing criticism in the US, their circle of allies appears to be shrinking. They now occupy an unusual space, too royal to fully integrate into Hollywood, yet too aligned with Hollywood to comfortably fit within the royal framework. Attempts to reshape their image often seem to create even more distance from authenticity, and as attention remains fixed on them, scrutiny is only intensifying. Every frame, every interview, every image is being examined by an audience that is no longer willing to accept things at face value. To fully grasp the shift, though, it helps to look at a psychological strategy some experts describe as engineered intimacy. By offering only small, fragmented glimpses of their children, a voice clip here, a blurred image there, they create a sense of scarcity around their private life. It follows a basic supply and demand principle. If the children were seen regularly, the intrigue would disappear, and with it, much of the commercial appeal. By limiting access, each rare appearance becomes an event, generating global attention and engagement. In that sense, it's not just about privacy, it's about preserving exclusivity. But when that exclusivity is tied to product launches like themed candles or specialty jams, the argument for privacy begins to look more like a calculated business model. Critics highlight the irony, using the perceived prestige of royal status to elevate everyday consumer goods into something that feels exclusive or aspirational. And this ties into another long-standing criticism, what some call the word salad issue that has followed Meghan's branding over the years. It's more than just a casual adjective. It has become a recurring element, almost a signature within her broader brand identity. In linguistic analysis, observers have pointed out that her communication style often leans toward abstract, emotionally charged language, phrases that sound powerful but don't always carry precise meaning. By having her daughter seemingly echo that same kind of word choice, it reinforces a mini-me narrative. It creates the impression of guidance and shaping, making the moment feel less like a spontaneous family interaction and more like a deliberate extension of the brand. If a child is already mirroring that voice, it raises questions about how much influence and direction might be happening behind the scenes in Montecito. This overlap in language is a key reason why skepticism is reaching new heights. To many, it feels overly refined, overly aligned with the brand, almost too perfect to be entirely authentic. Then there's the cultural impact of that viral Australia clip. The so-called E-death stare didn't spread simply because people enjoy drama. It resonated because it seemed to confirm a narrative that had been quietly circulating for years. Former staff and insiders have long hinted at a challenging atmosphere behind closed doors. So when the public catches even a fleeting glimpse of what appears to be a colder side in an otherwise warm setting, it reinforces existing beliefs. It feeds into the idea that the approachable, compassionate figure presented in 2026 may, in fact, be a performance, a carefully managed persona for global consumption. In Australia, especially where there's little patience for anything perceived as inauthentic, The reaction has been particularly strong. Many there recall the 2018 tour not as a success, but as the moment when early cracks began to show. Now, those cracks are being amplified by a digital world that never forgets and rarely lets anything fade away. What we're seeing could be described as the gradual unraveling of a brand built on competing versions of truth. As debates around the children's images continue and the commercial use of royal titles edges into more serious territory, the Sussexes appear to be running out of options. The spotlight they once sought to manage is now revealing the very details they may have preferred to keep hidden. And as global attention intensifies, the question shifts. It's no longer just about whether their business ventures will succeed. It's about what remains of their original legacy when everything settles. The path forward is narrowing. Connections are being severed. And the carefully crafted image is facing its most significant challenge yet. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, consider this. In a world where nearly everything can be packaged and sold, does true privacy even exist anymore? So, and if personal life becomes the foundation of a business, what happens when there's nothing left to share? The Sussexes seem to be playing a high-stakes game where the risks involve their children's identities, and the reward is a lasting foothold in Hollywood. But as any seasoned gambler knows, the house, in this case, the palace, tends to have the final advantage. What's your perspective on the word salad branding? Does the appearance of the HRH title on a gift basket shift your view of the Sandringham agreement? And do you think the public will ever see an unfiltered version of Archie and Lilibet, or will they remain part of a carefully managed narrative? Share your thoughts below. If you found this analysis engaging, consider liking and sharing. It helps the channel grow and keeps these deep dives coming. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next exploration into some of the world's most closely guarded stories.